In today's video, we're diving into one of the most talked about corporate shakeups. Why is Microsoft laying off its employees? We will talk about important points that are crucial for you to know, especially if you're part of the tech industry, a Microsoft user, or just someone who wants to understand how major corporations operate behind the scenes. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of the real reasons behind Microsoft's layoffs, from financial strategies to changing market demands, and what it all means for the future of work. If you find this content insightful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you stay informed on major business shifts and tech updates. Let's talk about the elephant in the room: cost cutting. This is not just a numbers game, it's a mindset shift. Microsoft, like many other tech giants, is responding to a broader economic reality. Inflation is up, interest rates are higher, and global markets are more unstable than they've been in years. So, the leadership at Microsoft had to make a decision. And while it might look ruthless on the outside, it's a survival move on the inside. Here's what most people miss. When the economy changes, even the biggest companies can feel it in their bones. You could be a trillion-dollar company and still need to cut back when forecasts start looking uncertain. It's not about panic. It's about preparation. The financial world rewards lean-focused companies that adapt quickly. So when Microsoft announces layoffs, it's not just shedding people, it's shedding weight. It's making room to move faster, breathe easier, and redirect resources to where they actually matter in this moment. And I get it. Hearing the word layoffs hits hard. It sounds like failure, doesn't it? But inside the company, it's not always framed that way. Sometimes it's more about resetting. Think about it. When you're hiking uphill with a heavy backpack, what do? You stop. You open the bag. You take out what you don't need anymore. It's not personal. It's necessary. Microsoft is doing the same thing. They're stepping back, reevaluating, and saying, where are we spending money that no longer aligns with where we're going? There's also a psychology to this. Big companies are trying to read the room, and the room is full of uncertainty. Supply chains are still recovering, consumer spending is shifting, and investors, they want discipline. They want evidence that you're making smart, strategic moves. So what's Microsoft doing? They're cutting costs now to prevent deeper problems later. It's about resilience, about avoiding reactive chaos in the future by being proactive today. Now, does that make it any easier for the people who are being let go? Of course not. It still sucks. It still stings. But there's something powerful in recognizing that you're not being let go because you weren't valuable. You're being let go because the strategy shifted. And when strategy shifts, roles change. That doesn't erase your skills. That doesn't take away your experience. It simply means it's time to pivot. The biggest takeaway here is this: Microsoft is facing the same pressure every one of us faces, to do more with less, to stay ahead of the curve, and to survive in a world that's changing faster than we can predict. Cost cutting is just one tool in their belt, but it's a big one. It's not glamorous, and it's definitely not easy, but in the long run, it's often what keeps companies and people in the game. Now let's get real about something most people overlook: priorities. They change, and when they do, everything else has to shift with them. Microsoft isn't laying people off because they don't value their work. They're laying people off because their business focus is changing. The world is moving, the tech landscape is evolving faster than ever, and Microsoft knows it can't keep pouring energy into areas that aren't aligned with where the future is going. This is something every one of us needs to understand, not just in business, but in life. You can't keep doing what used to work just because it once brought you success. What got you here isn't necessarily what's going to get you to the next level. Microsoft is proving that. They're shifting gears, stepping away from legacy departments, or slowing down investment in projects that no longer serve the direction they're heading. And what direction is that? Artificial intelligence, cloud technology, digital security, automation. That's where they're aiming their energy, and every decision they're making right now reflects that future-forward mindset. Let's say you've built an entire team around a product that worked 5 years ago, but now customers are asking for something new. That team might have done incredible work, but if the company keeps funding that project while the market is begging for something else, they're not innovating, they're stagnating. Microsoft understands this. And while it might sound harsh, they're removing the friction so they can move in the direction that actually has momentum. It's not just about chasing trends either. It's about listening to the data. Cloud adoption is skyrocketing. AI tools are being integrated into nearly every industry. Cybersecurity is now a top concern for every business, small or large. These are not just shiny new toys. They are essential tools for survival in the modern digital world. So Microsoft isn't just jumping on a bandwagon, they're leading it. And to do that, they've got to focus. That means fewer distractions, fewer mixed signals, fewer legacy operations that aren't serving their current mission. Now, think about how this applies to your own path. Maybe there's something you've been working on for years. Maybe you're deeply invested in it emotionally. But what if that thing no longer aligns with the life or career you want? Would you keep going just because you've already spent time on it? Or would you have the courage to shift gears and put your energy where it actually matters now? That's exactly what Microsoft is doing. They're not clinging to what used to work. They're committing to what's next. And sure, that means tough calls. That means people lose jobs. That means there's pain involved. But it's not chaos. It's clarity. It's about saying, this is what we're about now, and everything else has to step aside. That's not easy. It takes boldness. It takes discipline. It takes a willingness to say no to good things in order to say yes to the right things. Because when your priorities shift, your actions must follow. Otherwise, you're just pretending to grow instead of actually growing. Let's go back a couple of years. Remember the pandemic? The whole world went remote almost overnight. Offices shut down, Zoom calls became the new normal, and tech companies were suddenly in massive demand. Microsoft was right in the middle of that storm, and they did what almost every big tech company did at the time. They hired a lot, fast. It made sense in that moment. Demand for digital solutions skyrocketed. Everyone needed better cloud access, stronger cybersecurity, collaboration tools, remote work infrastructure, and Microsoft was positioned perfectly to deliver it all. So they expanded rapidly. They brought in thousands of employees to handle the surge. It wasn't reckless. It was strategic. The company responded to the moment with speed, and that speed meant growth. But here's the thing no one likes to talk about. Not all growth is sustainable. Just because something works in a crisis doesn't mean it'll work long term. What we're seeing now is the result of that, a necessary recalibration. The world didn't stay in that pandemic bubble. Offices reopened, businesses stabilized, people stopped spending as much time online. And while tech is still critical, it's not expanding at the same breakneck pace it was 2 or 3 years ago. So now Microsoft is doing what all of us eventually have to do when a chapter ends. They're reassessing. What happens when you build a team based on an urgent need that no longer exists at the same scale? You face hard decisions, because while those teams may be full of talented people doing good work, their purpose was tied to a moment that's now past. And keeping all of that structure in place when the demand has shifted, that's how you lose focus. That's how you become bloated, slow, reactive, everything a modern tech company can't afford to be. The truth is, overhiring wasn't a mistake. It was the right response at the time, but not adjusting now would be. This is a business lesson a lot of us struggle to absorb. Sometimes doing the right thing in one season requires you to let go of it in the next. And the longer you cling to it, the harder it gets to move forward. Microsoft is letting go of roles that were created to meet a moment that's no longer here. That doesn't mean the people were wrong. It doesn't mean their contributions didn't matter. It just means the moment has shifted and so must the structure. Think of it like this. If you're wearing winter gear in the middle of summer, it doesn't mean the coat was a bad purchase. It means it's time to hang it up for now and dress for the weather you're actually in. These layoffs aren't just about numbers. They're about timing, strategy, and momentum. Microsoft is shedding the extra layers they no longer need so they can run leaner and stay competitive. It's not just survival, it's evolution. It's preparing the company to move forward instead of dragging the weight of yesterday's success behind them. And for those affected, it's a painful transition, yes, but it's not the end. Because just like companies recalibrate, so do people. And sometimes being forced out of a system that was built for a different moment gives you the push you need to build something new for yourself, something better aligned with the future you actually want. There's a harsh reality that's starting to hit a lot of people, and it's not just happening inside Microsoft, it's everywhere. Jobs that once felt secure, roles that people worked years to master, are now being replaced or reshaped by artificial intelligence and automation. And it's happening fast. For many employees, the ground is shifting beneath them, not because they did anything wrong, but because the tools that once needed a human touch now run on lines of code. At Microsoft, this shift is clear. Automation isn't coming, it's already here. It's improving efficiency, saving time, and in many cases, replacing the need for entire layers of manual or repetitive tasks. AI isn't just making suggestions anymore. It's writing reports, scanning data, running customer support, managing calendars, analyzing performance metrics, even generating content. And the truth is, it's doing it well. Not perfectly, but well enough to start asking serious questions about where human involvement is still essential and where it's not. Think about that. When a machine can respond to a client inquiry in 3 seconds with perfect grammar and full context, what happens to the job that used to take care of that task? When a dashboard can summarize weekly team performance better than a junior analyst, what happens to that analyst's role? This isn't science fiction anymore, it's business strategy. Microsoft is simply responding to the math. If a task can be done faster, cheaper, and more reliably through automation, they're going to lean into that. And they're not alone. Every company that wants to stay relevant is making the same calculation. Now, that doesn't mean human value disappears, but it does mean the definition of value is changing. What's valuable today is no longer just your ability to do a task. It's your ability to think, to solve, to lead, to create in ways machines can't. It's your adaptability, your emotional intelligence, your creativity, your strategy. Those are things no algorithm can replicate. But the truth is, not every job was built around those skills. Some roles were built entirely around structure, routine, repetition, the very things machines are designed to handle. So when Microsoft lets go of certain positions, it's not because those people weren't important. It's because the need for that specific type of work has evolved. And yes, it's unsettling, it's uncomfortable. It forces people to question their place in a system that's being rewritten in real time. But this moment, this disruption, is also an invitation to step back and ask yourself, am I learning the skills that tomorrow will still need? Am I clinging to what I know, or am I building what's next? Because here's the truth, no one wants to say out loud. Staying the same is a risk. Doing what you've always done is a risk. And in today's world, where machines can learn faster than people, the only real safety is in growth. The only real security is in staying ahead of the curve. Microsoft isn't firing people to be cruel. They're adjusting to a world that's being transformed by automation, and they're doing it now so they don't get left behind later. And if you're watching this, you've got the same opportunity. The question is, are you willing to evolve before you're forced? Let's talk about focus. Not the kind where you try to juggle everything at once, but the kind where you cut through the noise and lock in on what truly matters. That's exactly what Microsoft is doing right now. They're not just laying people off randomly, they're making deliberate choices to double down on high growth areas. The parts of their business that are expanding fast and show no signs of slowing down. And the biggest one? It's AI. Microsoft isn't just dabbling in artificial intelligence. They're investing, scaling, embedding it into the core of everything they do. Tools like Copilot aren't just buzzwords. They're becoming the foundation of the next era of productivity. The way we work, create, collaborate, even think about software, it's all changing. And Microsoft sees it coming. Actually, they're helping shape it. So naturally, they're putting their best minds, their biggest budget slices, and their long-term energy into building the future right there. But it's not just AI. Azure, Microsoft's cloud platform, is another major growth engine. Businesses all over the world are shifting their infrastructure to the cloud, looking for flexibility, scalability, security, and Azure delivers on that. So it makes sense that Microsoft wants to prioritize it. When you've got a division that's consistently outperforming expectations and dominating the global market, you feed it, you protect it, you hire around it. And, hard as it may be, you move people away from areas that no longer fuel that mission. This isn't about abandoning the past, it's about choosing the future. And that means being strategic. It means recognizing that not all departments are built to scale at the same pace. Some parts of Microsoft, especially those tied to older products or less profitable services, simply can't keep up with the explosive growth in AI or cloud, and so the tough decisions get made. Not because those teams didn't matter, but because keeping the company agile, innovative, and competitive matters even more. You've probably heard the phrase, "don't spread yourself too thin." It's true for individuals, and it's even more true for companies. Microsoft knows that it can't win the next decade of tech if it's constantly trying to be everything to everyone. So they're narrowing their focus. They're making bold calls to shift resources, talent, money, time, toward what's growing. That takes courage, it takes vision, and yes, it often comes with short-term pain. But here's the deeper lesson in all this. Just like a company must choose where to grow, so must you. You've got to ask yourself, where am I putting my energy? Am I investing in areas of my life, my career, my mindset that are actually growing? Or am I holding on to routines, habits, and environments that just feel familiar but no longer serve where I want to go? Growth isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters most. Microsoft is choosing to prioritize the future. They're choosing innovation over nostalgia, momentum over comfort, and long-term gains over short-term ease. And that's the kind of focus that builds something truly powerful. Let's be honest, no one likes the word restructuring. It sounds cold, corporate, and like some boardroom buzzword meant to sugarcoat what's really going on. But if you take a step back and look at what Microsoft is doing, it's actually something we all need to learn from. Restructuring isn't about tearing things down. It's about realigning what's already there so the whole system runs better. That's exactly what's happening. They're not just making cuts. They're trying to build a version of the company that's leaner, more focused, and far more efficient. And that doesn't just mean trimming the fat. It means asking hard questions about how the business is structured. Where are the bottlenecks? What roles have become redundant because of new tools, new goals, or new market realities? What teams aren't collaborating the way they should be? Sometimes it's not even about performance, it's about fit, about whether the structure still serves the mission. In a company as massive as Microsoft, these questions aren't just asked once, they're asked constantly, because the tech world moves fast. And if the internal systems of the company are slow, bloated, or misaligned, it doesn't matter how talented your people are. You won't move fast enough to compete. So restructuring becomes essential, not because the people aren't doing their jobs, but because the system has to change for the company to stay relevant. Now, if you're on the receiving end of that change, it can feel deeply personal, like the ground just got pulled out from under you. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that feeling. It sucks. But here's what you have to remember. Being laid off during a restructuring doesn't mean you weren't good enough. It means the map changed, the goals shifted, and sometimes that shift just doesn't include the role you were in. But here's where this gets powerful. Restructuring isn't just a business move, it's a life move. Every single one of us gets to a point where we need to step back and ask, is the way I'm living, working, thinking still aligned with where I'm trying to go? Or have I outgrown my own systems? Maybe the way you organize your day, the way you approach your work, the people you surround yourself with. Maybe those things made sense 5 years ago, but do they still serve you now? Microsoft is modeling something important. When the old structure no longer supports the new mission, you change it. You don't wait for it to break. You don't let it slow you down. You make the hard call. You restructure. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for growth. And yeah, it's painful. It's messy. Sometimes you lose great people in the process. But that's the price of momentum. You don't get to move faster without shedding the things that hold you back. Whether that's in business or in your personal life, the principle is the same. So when you hear that Microsoft is restructuring, try not to just see layoffs. See strategy. See boldness, see a willingness to stop and realign, because that's what it takes to lead, not just follow. Most people think layoffs are something that happen in one place, like a single office, a department, or maybe just one country. But what's happening at Microsoft right now isn't isolated, it's global. These job cuts are impacting employees all around the world, not just in the United States. And that tells us something really important. This isn't about trimming one weak branch on the tree. This is a company-wide realignment that touches every level, every region, every piece of the structure. When a company makes cuts on a global scale, it's not a reaction to one market going soft or one team underperforming. It's a sign that the entire organization is pivoting. The strategy is shifting everywhere, not just in a single country, not just in a single product line. That means the core mission, the way the company operates across borders, is being rebuilt to fit what the future demands. That's big, and it's something you don't see unless you zoom out and look at the whole picture. What's also worth recognizing is that this isn't just about cost in dollars. It's about cost in energy, time, communication, and complexity. Operating at a global level means managing teams in different time zones, with different languages, working under different laws, and navigating different customer needs. And when priorities shift, like they are now with Microsoft focusing heavily on AI and cloud, some of those globally distributed roles, which made sense 5 years ago, just don't fit into the new model anymore. But here's the thing people rarely talk about. Sometimes companies hold on to outdated structures, not because they work, but because they're too scared to let them go. They avoid the hard decisions, they delay the changes, and they end up stuck, bloated, scattered, and slow to respond. What Microsoft is doing right now takes nerve. It takes clarity. And it takes a willingness to make hard choices on a global level, even when those choices affect people you've worked with for years. That's not easy. But it's necessary when you're trying to future-proof a company that operates in over 190 countries. This global impact also means that no one is immune to change. Just because your office isn't in the US or your role isn't tied to a high-profile product doesn't mean you're safe. That's a wake-up call. It means we all have to be adaptable, not just to our local market, not just to what's happening around us, but to the broader shifts in the industry, because what affects Microsoft in Europe, in Asia, in South America, it all connects. One team's restructuring affects another team's direction. One market's decline can shift resources to another. It's all intertwined. And if that sounds overwhelming, remember this. The people who thrive in this kind of environment aren't the ones who cling to the way things were. They're the ones who understand that the world is always moving, that companies grow, shrink, shift, and reinvent themselves, and that if you're willing to grow with them, if you stay flexible, keep learning, stay curious, you can stay relevant no matter where in the world you are. So when you hear about global layoffs at Microsoft, understand it's not chaos, it's coordination. It's a sign that the future they're building requires a whole new structure, one that reaches across borders, yes, but does so with purpose and precision. Let's pull the curtain back on something most people don't talk about when it comes to layoffs: investor confidence. It might sound like something that only matters to board members or stock traders on Wall Street, but make no mistake, it plays a massive role in how companies like Microsoft operate. Every decision, every hire, every restructuring effort, it's all being watched. Investors are always asking one question: is this company making smart decisions to protect and grow its value? And that brings us to one of the biggest reasons Microsoft is cutting jobs right now. It's not just about cost savings or streamlining operations. It's about signaling strength. When a company publicly reduces its workforce during a period of economic uncertainty, it's often interpreted as a move toward financial discipline. And discipline, in the world of investors, equals confidence. Think about it from their perspective. If you're someone who has millions, maybe even billions of dollars invested in Microsoft, you want to know the company isn't overextending. You want to see leadership making tough calls to protect long-term profitability. So when Microsoft trims down and refocuses its efforts, it's not just reacting to market pressures. It's actively managing how it's perceived by the people who hold the financial power. Now, that doesn't mean the people making these decisions are sitting around thinking only about stock prices, but they are aware that confidence is currency. If investors start to feel like the company's growth is slowing or that costs are getting out of control, the stock drops. That affects not just shareholders, but employees with stock-based compensation, retirement plans, bonuses. It has ripple effects everywhere. So maintaining a positive image in the market isn't about vanity. It's about protecting the overall health and stability of the company. And that's why moves like layoffs, as difficult as they are, often lead to a short-term bump in the stock price. Not because the market celebrates people losing their jobs, but because it sees the company making strategic changes to stay profitable. It sends a message. We're paying attention. We're adapting. We're not going to let bloat take us down. That may sound cold, but it's reality. Public companies live and die by perception. Microsoft knows that. They know their investors are watching to see if they can lead during uncertainty, not just coast when things are good. And the truth is, leading during uncertain times requires courage, the kind of courage that's willing to make unpopular choices if it means protecting the future. This is where leadership matters most. It's easy to look strong when your numbers are up and everything feels stable. It's much harder to maintain that posture when things are shaky and the pressure is on. But that's exactly what Microsoft is doing. They're showing their investors and the world that they're not afraid to take action. They're not waiting for the market to punish them. They're staying ahead of it. And honestly, there's a personal takeaway here too. Just like companies need to show investors they're serious about their direction, we need to show ourselves, and the people who depend on us, that we're serious about where we're heading, that we're not afraid to make changes, even hard ones, to protect what matters most. Because sometimes the boldest move isn't expansion, it's Let's take a moment to talk about something that doesn't always get enough attention when layoffs happen. The human side, the emotional toll on employees, the impact on morale, and the ripple effect throughout the entire company. When Microsoft announces layoffs, it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's real people with real lives, feeling uncertain about their futures. And those feelings don't stay contained to just the people who lose their jobs. They spread. They affect the whole workforce. Imagine you're still there, watching your friends, your teammates, your colleagues walk out the door with boxes in their hands. Suddenly, your sense of security shakes. Questions flood your mind. Am I next? Is my job safe? How much longer can I trust this company? Those feelings chip away at confidence and motivation. People don't perform their best when they're anxious. They don't innovate when they're worried about job security. And that's a tough challenge for any company, especially one like Microsoft that relies on creativity, collaboration, and cutting-edge thinking. Morale is fragile in these moments, and it's important to recognize that leadership can't just sweep layoffs under the rug and expect people to bounce back quickly. Trust has to be rebuilt. Communication needs to be honest and clear. The company has to show that it values the people who remain, not just the numbers they represent, because when morale tanks, productivity suffers, and that hits the bottom line even harder. This also reveals something critical about the culture of a company. How layoffs are handled speaks volumes about leadership. Are people treated with respect and dignity? Are there support systems in place for those who are leaving? Career counseling, severance packages, mental health resources? For those staying, is there transparency about why decisions were made and what the company's future looks like? These factors matter deeply. They influence whether the company can heal and move forward stronger or whether it will struggle with distrust and disengagement. And it's not just about corporate optics. It's about the very real fact that companies are made up of people. People with families, dreams, bills to pay, and aspirations. When layoffs happen, it shakes that foundation. It's a reminder that the workplace isn't a guaranteed safe space. And that reminder can be a wake-up call for both employees and employers to rethink how they build stability and resilience. The psychological impact extends beyond the immediate moment. Even after the dust settles, the anxiety lingers. People start looking for the exit door or mentally checking out. That's why it's crucial for companies to focus on rebuilding culture and morale, to bring people back from the edge, reignite passion, and restore trust. It's not just a nice to have, it's a business imperative. For anyone watching this who is going through or has gone through layoffs, it's okay to feel shaken. It's okay to question your worth. But remember, a company's decision to let people go is rarely a reflection of personal failure. It's about broader strategies, changing markets, and evolving technologies. Your value doesn't disappear because your role does. And for those still in the company, remember, this moment is a chance to step up, to support your colleagues, to foster community, to be part of rebuilding something better. Because when morale is low, leadership can come from anywhere, not just from the top. No company is immune to these challenges, but how they respond makes all the difference. Microsoft's current layoffs reveal a bigger truth. Success is not just about profits or products. It's about people, and if the people aren't cared for, nothing else really. Let's zoom out for a moment and look at the bigger picture, the tech industry as a whole. Microsoft's layoffs aren't just an isolated incident. They're part of a much larger trend that's reshaping the way tech companies operate. The truth is, even the biggest giants aren't immune to market forces, changing technologies, or economic shifts. No one's too big to adapt, and no one's too successful to face tough decisions. We've seen the tech sector go through cycles before, booms and busts, hiring sprees and cutbacks. But what's different this time is the speed and scale of change. Technology evolves faster than ever, markets shift on a dime, and customer demands pivot constantly. Companies that were untouchable a few years ago now find themselves recalibrating just to stay relevant. Microsoft's layoffs reflect this reality. It's a wake-up call for the entire industry that no company can rest on past successes. What makes this even more complex is that the changes aren't just about economics. They're about transformation. The industry is moving from traditional software and hardware into AI, cloud computing, automation, and other emerging fields. That shift requires different skills, different teams, and different priorities. Companies need to evolve their workforce just as much as they evolve their products. So when we see layoffs, we're seeing more than just a reduction in headcount. We're seeing a transformation of talent, a reallocation toward the future. Microsoft is investing heavily in AI and cloud, but that means other areas aren't growing as fast and may be downsized. It's not about cutting for the sake of cutting. It's about making sure the company is positioned for the next decade, not the last one. And this isn't just happening at Microsoft. Other tech giants are making similar moves. Some are slowing down hiring. Others are letting people go. Even startups are feeling the pressure to be leaner and more strategic. The industry is shifting from a frenzy of growth to a more measured pace of innovation and profitability. For employees and job seekers, this means one thing: adaptability is more critical than ever. The skills that were hot 5 years ago might not be in demand today. The jobs that existed yesterday might be automated tomorrow. If you want to thrive in tech, you have to be ready to learn, pivot, and grow continuously. For companies, the lesson is clear too. Agility isn't optional. You have to be willing to make hard decisions, realign resources, and embrace change to survive. Microsoft's layoffs are a tough but necessary step in that direction. This moment in tech is challenging, no doubt about it. But it's also full of opportunity. The companies that can transform their talent and focus on emerging technologies will lead the next wave of innovation. The people who can adapt their skills and mindset will find new paths to success. So, while the headlines about layoffs are alarming, they're also a sign of an industry that's evolving, not dying. Change is happening fast, and the future belongs to those who can keep up.